It's a lot.
It's 2 o'clock. If you could take your seats, please.
It's 2:01.
It's 2:01, excuse me.
Oh, goodness.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Western Riverside Council of Governments Executive Committee. This time, please select yes to register your presence, please. We're waiting on a number.
That's everyone that's present, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Going to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Kelly Serrata from Marietta.
Go. Place your right hand over your heart. Recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is item number 3, public comments. I understand we have Arnold San Miguel from SCAG.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. So I just wanted to take your time to let you know that SCAG will be conducting 4 public hearings related to the proposed Regional Housing Needs Assessment allocation methodology with options, which is available for review and public comment. As you know, the regional housing needs is mandated by the state housing law to quantify the existing and projected need for housing by income categories for each local jurisdiction during the specified planning period. In this case, that's October 21 through October 2029. So SCAG is in the process of developing the 6th cycle Regional Housing Needs Assessment Allocation Plan, and we plan to adopt that final plan in October of 2020, and then, as you all know, local jurisdictions will have 1 year to complete their housing element. The public hearings will provide information regarding SCAG's proposed regional housing need allocation methodology options and serve as an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. So I just want to quickly let you know the dates and times of the public hearings. Thursday, August 15th at the SCAG Los Angeles office with webcast view only. Tuesday, August 20th at the SCAG 6 satellite offices. So that's right across the street, SCAG Riverside office, from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And I missed out the time for Thursday, August 15th at 6 to 8 p.m. And then on Thursday, August 22nd from 1 to 3 at the City of Irvine Conference Center. And then on Tuesday, August 27th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority Board of Directors room. It says second floor, but it really is on the first floor, and there's like a security that you have to go through, and that's webcast only also. So great opportunity to weigh in on the methodology, and if you have recommendations, this really is the time to weigh in. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Arnold. Janice, are there any other public comments?
I have no requests.
Thank you. Go on to item number 4, the minutes from June 3rd and June 21st meetings. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Hearing none. Janice, you want to set up the vote? Did I do that right? And they pass 16-0. Item number 5 is the consent calendar. All items A through I listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature and enacted in one motion. Does anyone wish to pull an item? Hearing none. Janice, if you'll set up the vote for approval. And that is approved 16-0. Item 6A, an update on the League of California Cities activities presented by Aaron Sassy.
Good afternoon, Aaron Sassy with the League of California Cities. Thank you for having me here today. The legislature goes back on Monday, so it's been a little bit of a nice quiet break for us, but the last month is always very hectic, so I'll just warn you now. A couple of items, and I just want to say thank you to Janice for giving you the document late, but I want to highlight a couple of them for you. AB 213 is the Reyes bill that would restore funding for cities that have had inhabited annexations. I know this is one we've talked about for several years now. It's still moving through. It doesn't seem to have any opposition this year, so that's definitely good news. I know Temecula greatly benefits from that bill. Another one is SB 5. I know I've talked about this one. It's a sort of new form of redevelopment, but we're really the closest we're ever going to get to it again. It's still moving forward. I definitely want to encourage all of you to look at this. I know we've done a lot of calls, and I've talked about it, sent out a lot of documents, but it would give you some financing options that went away with redevelopment. So you should definitely be supporting that. We're hoping that if we can get enough support that the governor will actually pay attention and sign that one. Another one is AB 516. This is the CHU bill that limits your authority to regulate vehicle violations. Still moving forward. I know a lot of you have weighed in with your opposition. Thank you for that. But the fight is definitely not over on that one. So please, if you have not submitted an opposition letter, do so. All of you should also be reaching out to your legislators. I know that a lot of them have been supportive of our position. Unfortunately, Senator Roth did let it get through the Senate the Senate Transportation Committee. So it is still moving forward. It's in Senate Appropriations. So phone calls, texts, letters on that one, very important. And lastly, one that I do just want to highlight for you, and I think we'll be sending out some additional information on this maybe later today or tomorrow. It's SB 266 by Leyva, so a local legislator. It has to do with CalPERS, Public Employment Retirement System, and basically you'll have to pay out of your general fund to a retiree and their beneficiary any disallowable compensation. So you need to be looking at this bill. Definitely has some significant impacts to all of your cities. Like I said, I think we have some document coming out today, but we do have sample letters available for that through our portal. That's really easy. You just do the letter and it sends it off to all the people you need to send it to. A couple other just calendar items. Our mayor's breakfast for those of you that are mayors, or if you are a mayor and you can't go, you can send a designee. Is this coming Friday? We have Assemblyman Mays coming to be our speaker for that. Our golf tournament is September 13th. Definitely need all of you to help with that, participate. October 16th, that annual conference is our next division meeting. We're doing a lunch again this year. in a bigger room. For those of you that were there, I know we ran out of room last year, which was a good problem to have. And then I did send out an email about a week ago asking for any of you that are interested in serving on our division executive committee. We need to get those applications in. They're year terms, so if any of you want to serve on that, please get me your application. And then also, if you want to serve on a statewide policy committee for next year, we're starting that process. So I definitely need you to tell me, one, you're interested, and two, what committee you want to be on. But it's helpful if you say maybe your top 3 committee priorities, because then we can start the appointment process. With that, happy to take any questions, but just get ready for the next week, or sorry, the next month. It's going to be incredibly busy.
Are there any questions for Aaron? Nope. And District 2, I see you were in the queue. No? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Good, then I didn't miss you. Thank you, Aaron. Next item, 6B, is a joint presentation by Paul Jones of Eastern Municipal Water District and Craig Miller of the Western Municipal Water District on activities at the state, regional, and local levels, ensuring adequate water supply for Western Riverside County residents and businesses.
Thank you very much, Chair Wright.
Yes.
I'm Craig Miller. I'm the General Manager at Western Municipal Water District. I'll kind of handle the first half of the presentation, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Paul Jones from Eastern.
Thank you.
So with that, let's get rolling. So we'll talk a little bit about water supply. We'll talk about local projects, both Western and Eastern. We'll talk about a very collaborative project with the Paris Groundwater Base and March Air Base, and then a little bit about a water quality issue that's kind of impacting the entire state that we think you all should be aware of. But I'll lead off. I get the water supply update. This is a unique thing for us. We're here to talk about a good water year. Usually we come here to complain about a drought and everybody needs to cut back. We're exactly the opposite this year. So it's been a fantastic year. If you look at the chart, the state water project allocation has been increased again to 75%. That's the water coming from Northern California. Metropolitan Water District is basically our mover of that water for both Western and Eastern. That 75% allocation means they have about 1.4 million acre feet to move through the project from Northern California this year. Snowpack was outstanding, 137% of average, so that's outstanding. And then on the Colorado, Met not only moves it from Northern California, but they move it from the Colorado River system. Colorado's been in a 20-year drought. They're actually not this year. So about 133% of average hydrology in Colorado. So that's great news. Of course, you can't dig out of a hole that you've created for 20 years in 1 year. So it's good news, but Lake Mead certainly has not fully recovered. Metropolitan gets about 1 million acre feet out of the Colorado River system. So the great news is, you add those two up, they have about 2.4 million acre feet. Their demands are trending at about 1.4 for the year. So that means they've got 1 million acre feet of excess water. So they're stashing that water in every storage account that they can, and then they're giving member agencies the opportunity to stash that water away also. So there's several programs that can be participated in to store water in times of drought in the future. So it's been a great year. So rain's basically over for the year, so we're confident this is how it's all going to end until it starts raining again in the winter. And as of now, the entire state is out of drought restrictions, so that's really good news for all of us. So let's look a little more closely at this, and you can see it from the chart. If you go down the chart and look at Lake Shasta is at 94%, Oroville's at 90%. San Luis, at the time we made this chart, was not full, but that's understandable. It's more of a transitionary reservoir, so it fluctuates more. Lake Matthews is where Colorado River system ends, so it's very high. It's a little bit of a transitional reservoir too, depending on demands. The great news for our region is Diamond Valley is back basically full, so 800,000 acre feet. You wonder why Southern California and really the Inland Empire got through the drought without severe cutbacks. It's because of Diamond Valley. So there was 800,000 acre feet parked there the last time it got dry, and it's parked there again. So that's great news. That's all Northern California water, very low TDS. So it's great to have that full. Here's a graphic on snowpack. So northern Sierra, the red line is what we did this year. The nice smooth line is the average, so you can see very good year. If you look at the graphic on the right called the 8-station index, this is 8 different stations in the Sierra that we track every single month, and we get reports on it all the time. You can see that if you looked at it just in December, the dark blue being the current conditions, you would have said, uh-oh, we're looking for another dry year. But then after that, every single year has exceeded the average, and February was enormous. So a great year here. If you look at the Colorado River system, over on the right, you see kind of the same curves. A good year, again, 133% of average. But look at the important graphic that we all watch very closely is the Lake Mead storage graphic. And you can see how that line kind of wiggled down and got down to the shortage level. That is very important. That's where Nevada and Arizona have to start cutting back their take out of Lake Mead. It doesn't affect us, but the overall system would be in jeopardy, and that would then end up affecting all of us. So you can see there hasn't been huge recovery, but you can see how the trend over the last few years has really stopped the dive, and it's starting to migrate its way back up again. So that's great news. So what are we doing locally? It's a good water supply year. How do we move the water around? So from Western's perspective, 2 big projects that we're just wrapping up, the La Sierra pipeline and the Sterling pump station, about a $36 million capital improvement program there. And what that does is we've got 2 groundwater desalters, so same technology as ocean desalters, except they're in what they call brackish groundwater basins, so it's very salty, so you can't directly use the water unless you put it through a desalter. So this pipeline, the La Sierra pipeline, is the red line on there, and between those 2 blue lines is a huge elevation difference, about 1,000 feet. So that pipeline and that pump station is a physical connection between the lighter blue line, which is the imported water from Mills Gravity Line, and all of our groundwater assets down in the Chino Basin and the Riverside Basin. So this is the first time, once this project's completed, that you can actually move a drop of water from Chino all the way to Lake Elsinore. So a huge interconnection of our system, which in our world is all about reliability. So the more straws you have in the ground, the more straws you have to imported water, the more valuable it is for all of our customers. So it's a big investment in reliability and redundancy, but super valuable for our customers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Wright. And everybody, appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'm Paul Jones, General Manager of Eastern Municipal Water District. I'm going to talk a little bit about our projects and then go on to some other interesting things that we're working on. But this shows a graphic of some of the key projects that we're working on at Eastern Municipal Water District. We serve 7 cities and unincorporated county that are shown pretty much on the map here. And our projects that we have in our $100 million a year capital plan really are broken down kind of into 3 categories. First, creation of new local water supplies. As Craig mentioned, they have desalters in their service area. We have ample groundwater, particularly in the western portion of our service area, but it's salty and impaired. And so we are building a 3rd brackish groundwater desalter that will pump that water and purify it for use by our customers. That's a large project that we have going on right now to create new local supplies. And then the second category we really look at is providing capacity for growth. Our service area is only about 38% built out. And we, for example, this year are seeing tremendous amount of growth. We forecast about 3,200 equivalent dwelling units of growth in our service area. We're actually seeing about 4,400 EDUs, and we're on that pace for this year. So we're looking to provide capacity through local water supplies and through additional connections to the imported water system to serve growth in the central portion of our service area. So you can see these various large diameter transmission pipelines that are connected to Met system that bring water into the service area. The third category is really to increase our resilience, and that resilience is to droughts. as well as natural disasters. So one of the things we're working on that complements what we're doing on bringing more imported water in and increasing the capacity to do so is to create groundwater banking. So we're looking at this in the Hemet-San Jacinto Basin, creating a groundwater banking program in there. So in years like this, we could bring tremendous amounts of water in, put that water in the ground, and then take it out during dry periods, or if we had natural disasters, for example, an earthquake on the San Andreas Fault that would cut off Metropolitan's imported water supply system, we'd have that water under our feet and have the ability to take that water out for use and really make our service area in this region much more resilient. Another project that we're focusing on right now is the Paris North Groundwater Basin Contamination Prevention and Remediation Program. This is a great water supply project. The Moreno Valley area historically was pumped for agricultural purposes. The water is somewhat impaired, both naturally with natural and man-made contaminants. So, for example, there was historic farming there, so there's nitrates in the groundwater. It has naturally occurring salts, fluoride, other minerals, and then, of course, there's industrial solvents and contaminants as well. And so the area was not pumped. As a result, there's a rising groundwater condition in that area, where in some areas adjacent to the March Air Reserve Base, there's groundwater that's 3 feet under the ground surface. So there's a lot of groundwater in that area. So what we're trying to do is focus on projects to be able to recover and reuse that groundwater, prevent that poor quality groundwater from migrating in other areas, and meet those local supply objectives that I talked about. So this project and what's shown in the circles are the wells that would be constructed with the project. They'd be brought into treatment and blending facilities and then put into our main existing transmission mains and distributed throughout our service area and also to Western service area. The benefits of this project is, first and foremost, it's going to produce about 6,700 acre-feet of new water supply. That's enough for about 24,000 families, so you can see it's quite a bit of water. It also protects existing wells, and it's going to help address that rising groundwater condition. We've had a very significant effort putting together grant applications for this project. We are very successful in seeking grant funds. We put an application in under Proposition 1 in March 2019 for $36 million. The local water agencies, Eastern primarily, is going to put up the other $36 million for the project. And so we made a 50% state match grant. We're expecting the results of the grant award soon. We keep hearing the grant award is in the mail, and we're very optimistic. And it will, the amount of grant funding that we get will dictate how we phase and build the project. To get a grant, it takes a family and a family of supporters, and we really had extraordinary support for this project from our state delegation, our federal delegation, from local agencies, from the Western Riverside Council of Governments, even from the Air Force itself. So we really had a great deal of support for this, and we're very optimistic that this project's going to go forward. And the next time I'm up here, I'm going to be able to report a positive result. So now I want to shift, because I drew the short straw, to a contamination issue. And this is an emerging contaminant issue, and this is per and polyfluoral alkyl substances, or PFAS. And you've probably heard a little bit about this in the news. It's a class of over 4,500 man-made chemicals. It's used in waterproofing materials, non-stick coatings, firefighting foams, paper packaging, and wrapper for food. In fact, what's interesting about this is it is so ubiquitous in the environment that when you sample for it and when our technical staff goes and collects the samples, there's a very strict protocol that they have to use. For example, they can't have eaten literally fast food for lunch. Because when you get fast food and you have French fries and they're wrapped in a wrapper, and that wrapper has kind of a coating inside to keep the grease off of you, that is a perfluorinated compound. If they have new clothes that haven't been washed, the sizing sometimes has fireproofing material in it, a perfluorinated compound. So it's so ubiquitous in the environment, we're testing at such trace levels, and the paths to be able to get into whether it's the water supply or even your body are very significant, or for you to contaminate samples. It's a very, very stable and resistant to degradation. It was originally developed in the 1940s. Teflon pan coating is a perfluorinated compound. So you can tell it's really throughout the environment. There is evidence that very excessive exposure can lead to adverse health effects. The Science Advisory Board, the US EPA, and World Health Organization considers PFOA, which is one of the PFAS, a likely human carcinogen. However, there's not really a whole lot known about this contaminant, and there are no state or federal, what we call MCLs, or maximum contaminant levels, to which you're not regulated to have that amount over in your water supplies. But there are what they call advisory levels. So, for example, the Environmental Protection Agency in the state of California have what they call a notification level. The notification level is where you are required as a water supplier, if the contaminants are present above this level, to notify your customers, which makes sense. And then they have what's called a response level. And the response level is where EPA and the state recommend the source be taken out of service. Now, because these levels are not set with the normal protocols of health effects studies, they tend to be very, very, very conservative, as you can imagine. And one of the things we have become aware of is the state is looking at basically lowering these notification and response levels well below what those are being promulgated by the Environmental Protection Agency. So just to give you a sense, these values are shown in this table in parts per trillion. That's what PPT stands for. Just to give you a sense of what a part per trillion is, a part per trillion, and I've got one written down here in the footnotes, it says denotes which are approximately equal to 1 drop in 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools of water. Another way to look at it, which resonates with me a lot better, is in terms of time, and that's because I'm getting close to retirement, but a part per trillion is 1 second in 32,000 years. So you can imagine how trace these elements are. So we're looking, and these are just at the science's kind of base level of being able to detect these contaminants. So the state is proposing much more aggressive levels for the notification and the response level. Previously, notifications for PFOA and PFOS are 14 and 13 parts per trillion, and then 70 for combined. As you can see, the state's proposing 5.1 and 6.5, and then 10 and 40 for the response level. They base that on studies, and then they do theoretical projections of risk. That projection of risk is based on a study that I'll talk about in a moment, but it then takes the projection of risk that, assuming that someone drinks 2 liters of water for 70 years, and they multiply that times 100, and that's what the risk level is. The study the state's using for this is a single rodent study that is not peer-reviewed by the scientific community, and it's quite controversial right now. And the reason we raise issues about this is not that we don't want to protect public health. That is our primary goal. But what happens many times is bad science can lead to over-exuberant regulations that really don't protect public health, and then we end up having to divert resources to go after regulations that really aren't benefiting the community. And so, you know, we're seeing this type of reaction from the state of California. In addition, there was legislation passed, AB 756 by Garcia, that requires substantial additional testing, expanded monitoring, mailing, email, social media, publishing in newspapers, etc., above these notification levels. So it is pretty serious. Now, locally, I think one of the good things is where we're situated in Reston, Riverside County, we're feeling that we're in pretty good shape. First, imported water from Metropolitan has no detection of PFAS. So I think that's a positive thing. We have seen PFAS in a couple of our wells. Those wells are down gradient of the March Air Reserve Base. This is not a new thing. We've been working with March for over 2 years on this. And in fact, the Air Force has stepped up, and they are paying for putting treatment on those wells, granular activated carbon, to remove the PFAS. And they're actually, why that process is going on is are paying for replacement water to bring replacement water in from Metropolitan. So we've taken those wells out of service right now until treatment can be put on. And other drinking water sources used both by EMWD as Western are not above the notification levels. So we feel that we're in pretty good shape. However, interestingly enough, in Orange County, they're seeing a number of wells substantially above the notification level in the Santa Ana River, in lower Santa Ana River in Orange County. And in fact, if the state alters these regulations, about a third of the wells in Santa Ana River basin would be above the response level, and they would be taking those wells out of service. It's about 100,000 acre feet of groundwater production, so it is very serious. What we've done is stepped up our monitoring. We were ordered previously to monitor our wells. We're continuing to monitor those wells very aggressively to see if this comes into our system at all or any detection of it. We have a great partnership with Western and Inland Empire Utilities Agency, San Bernardino County Municipal Water District, and Orange County Water District to do more comprehensive research. One of the things is the state is considering when to implement these response and notification levels. They're saying that the new notification levels probably wouldn't go into effect until this fall. And so we are going to engage in a process where we are retaining one of the top toxicological firms in the country, Intertox. They are going to look at all the studies, health effect studies that have been done throughout the United States. They're going to look at what other states have used to put regulations together, and we're going to put that together, the credible science, and provide that to the state of California before they promulgate those regulations in a hope that they will look at this a little bit more reasonably. And so we're also educating and informing our customers. I mean, as I said, you probably have more PFAS in your body from that Gore-Tex jacket that you wear than from ingesting from drinking water. And we think customers really need to know that so they're not unduly alarmed by the effects of these contaminants. And of course, our goal is to always protect public health, and that's our principal goal. So with that, happy to answer any questions. If you have any really difficult questions on the perfluorinated compound, Craig's available to answer those. No, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I always appreciate the opportunity to come and speak before this group, and appreciate being able to give quarterly updates on kind of where we are on water issues. Are there any questions I could answer?
Well, thank you both for this presentation. I see we have someone in the queue, District 2.
Legitimate this time.
Okay, great.
So with, when Arnold came up and shared about our RENA public hearings and the number of housing units to be built by some of our cities, at the same time, we are constantly getting questioned as to there's not enough water. And so it's a juggling act that our municipalities have to deal with constituents. So from my understanding, what you're saying today is there's adequate water.
Well, you know, certainly I can speak for my service area, and then I'll give some comments kind of generally. We have, like most agencies, including Western, multiple plans that look at multiple resources. So it's kind of like a portfolio, an investment portfolio, which I'm sure we all worried about a little bit today. But and we look at local water supplies, every opportunity to do water use efficiency, water recycling, as well as imported water, and we balance those things out. We're also putting in projects and programs to build resilience. So, for example, if we have multiple dry years, we can pull banked water out of the ground and use that. But I would say one thing globally is interesting is that's not just a phenomenon in Riverside County. We're seeing it all over Southern California. So we're seeing demands in general in Southern California kind of drop or stay stable, even though growth's occurring. And there's areas like San Diego, for example, where they're building a large, what they call indirect potable reuse recycled water project, which will vastly reduce the amount of water they take from Metropolitan. So, and they're doing that literally in city by city by city all over Southern California. So what we're seeing in general is our imported water supplies are actually very shored up, and that actually the demands on Metropolitan are pretty much staying level right now, and in fact dropping even in the last couple of years. So we have a very robust imported water system. We're doing everything we can on local supplies. Our customers are using water very, very efficiently. You know, for example, we have really great standards for landscaping where customers are putting in really efficient irrigation and less water consumptive landscaping. And so I feel that our position in terms of water supply availability to serve growth in the region is better than it's ever been.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Other questions?
I see none in the queue. You've done a great
Thank
job.
you, Chair
Thank you very
Wright. I
much.
appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. That's receive and file. We'll go on to item number 6C, a presentation by Daniel Soltero on Regional Streetlight Program.
Good afternoon, Chair Wright, members of the Executive Committee. My name is Daniel Soltero. I'm a staff analyst at WRCOG in charge of the Streetlight Program. Today I'll be talking to you a little bit about the Streetlight Program, and just as a background, the Streetlight Program was developed to assist jurisdictions with the acquisition of their streetlights from Southern California Edison, retrofitting them to LED technologies, and then providing ongoing operations and maintenance, ultimately saving the participating jurisdictions about $70 million over 20 years. So I'll be talking today as giving some retrofit status updates on the few jurisdictions that are going through that process, and also some public opinion on the retrofits that have occurred, meeting AMA and Palomar Observatory recommendations, as well as talking about an LED price increase that we avoided. So the city of Murrieta was the first to start retrofitting its streetlights. It's currently about 99% complete. Safe to say that it's mostly complete. There are only a few city-owned streetlights that the city has actually added after the acquired lights from Edison were retrofitted. As you can see by the map there, most of the city is now the black dots, which signify converted points, with only a few dots that we have to go back and talk through with Southern California Edison. The city of Eastville is currently about 76% complete. They started at the beginning of June and have now retrofitted over 3,100 streetlights. So they're moving very quickly there through the city. As you can see, only it appears only the northeast section of the city is left to be retrofitted. The city of Moreno Valley is also undergoing the streetlight retrofit right now. Over 60% completed now. The green areas signify areas that have been converted, whereas the red areas are scheduled work for the current week. They're going to be retrofitting over 11,000 streetlights, so that not only includes the acquired streetlights from Southern California Edison, but also their city-owned lights. The city of Wildomar started this last month. They're currently about 50% complete with their streetlight retrofit, so they're going through very quickly in Wildomar. As you can see there, about half of the lights remain, so they're going to be completing here in the next, I would say, the next month or two. Furthermore, our remaining jurisdictions, Hemet is scheduled to be starting this month. It's actually looking like it might happen this Friday, so we're very glad to be starting in the city of Hemet. They're going to be retrofitting over 4,200 streetlights, city-owned lights, and the lights that they acquired from Southern California Edison. Remaining jurisdictions are set to start in the next couple months through the end of the year. So that's the Jurupa Community Services District, Lake Elsinore, Menifee, cities of Paris, San Jacinto, and Temecula. So public opinion so far has been mostly positive. In Eastvale, they released some Facebook posts that we saw in the comments here that residents were very happy with what they saw. The city of Eastvale has a very good platform with their residents, and we saw that opportunity to showcase what the street lights have, how well received they are in the community. There was one resident that expressed that the LEDs are not as bright as previously legacy lighting. We are meeting program goals to mitigate the light pollution that is emitted from the legacy lighting, as well as any stray light that may go onto private residences. So essentially any kind of light pollution that was emitted from older lighting is no longer being seen through the LEDs. Furthermore, residents in Moreno Valley, as well as some WRCOG staff that live in the city, have also commented on the new LEDs mitigating the light pollution that was emitted onto their properties. It's no longer being seen. And in Murrieta, we've received no negative comments either. So talking a little bit about the program's goals for LED lighting. Like I said just a second ago, we are meeting our goals for mitigating the light pollution that was emitted from the legacy lighting, as well as stray light that's emitted onto private residences. We are also meeting the American Medical Association's recommendation for LEDs to be no higher than 3,000 color temperature. And what that is the older lighting look to be a more warmer or orange color, a little more yellow, whereas LEDs can go as high as blue light, essentially. And that's what the AMA has been recommending against. WRCOG has recommended we go 2,700 color temperature, which is exceeding the AMA's guidelines. We're also meeting the Palomar Observatory's recommendation, which is less than 3,000 Kelvin. So that assists in their nightly research as well as any operations that go at the Palomar Observatory. And lastly, talking about the LED price increase. So since 2017, there's been some changes in the federal tariffs that the U.S. federal government has imposed on imports coming from China. Some of those imports forced the LED manufacturers to increase their pricing between 6% and 10%. So one of those manufacturers being GE, General Electric, the manufacturer that was chosen for LEDs to provided for the streetlight program. So in 2018, GE formally requested a price increase of about 5% for our contract. We responded with a price lock. So we secured a price lock through the end of June, securing the RFQ pricing from the original contract, and then we also negotiated a 5% increase throughout the end of the year. Starting in January 1st, 2020, we will be at fair market value, but fortunately, we met the deadline. So by meeting this deadline at the end of June, we were able to save participating jurisdictions upwards of $370,000, and that is by working very closely with our jurisdictions, and we really appreciate that. I'm very proud that we were able to meet this deadline. And that concludes my presentation. This is a receive and file item. I'm happy to take any questions on the presentation.
Thank you, Daniel. Are there any members who wish to comment or have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 6D, presentation by Casey Daly on the HERO program activities.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Casey Daly, Director of Energy and Environmental Programs here at WRCOG. Today we have three items to discuss on this PACE item. One is an update to the HERO dealer fee program. The other is an update to our existing debt management policy. And then the third is an increase to the authorized maximum bonded indebtedness levels. Try saying that fast 3 times. So to start with an update on the HERO dealer fee program. So the dealer fee program essentially is a promotional program set up by Renovate America and all of our other PACE providers that allows contractors to pay to offer a lower interest rate to the customers. This is a pretty industry-wide standard in the home improvement space. And back in February of 2017, the Executive Committee approved new rate options that included the HERO dealer fee program. The basic way that it works is that a contractor has 90 days to select one of these interest rate bands. And so it's a set of interest rates that are based on a 5-year term, 10, 15, 20, and 25-year term. So the terms of the loans, terms of the financing. And then the contractor is locked into that rate for 90 days, and they can't move. And after the 90-day period is up, they can move into a different band. And so as part of that, part of what was approved by the Executive Committee back in 2017 was a minimum and a maximum interest rate level. And so you all gave direction that if Renovate America or any other PACE provider were to come and exceed the maximum interest rate, that they would have to come back to Executive Committee for approval. What we're doing today, what we're asking to do today is not touch any of those interest rates. So we're not changing any of the interest rates. What we are requesting through Renovate is to give the contractors the flexibility to move within those bands. So it's basically, rather than having to lock them in for a 90-day period, contractors are free to move from one band to another to be as competitive as possible working in the marketplace. Again, this would not affect any of the interest rate bands. They would still be within the approved rate. And this was taken to Admin and Finance in July with a unanimous recommended approval. So moving on to the HERO debt management policy. So the debt management policy establishes the parameters for issuing debt. There have been some changes in PACE law that required us to come back with an update to the debt management policy. This was first approved in 2017, and then this past June we took it to Admin and Finance for an approval, or for a recommendation for approval to come to WRCOG Executive Committee. The next item really ties to the debt management policy, which is the maximum bonded indebtedness levels. In 2011, the board set the max level at $900 million. Back in June of 2016, that was increased to $3 billion. Where we are right now is that we've already exceeded $2 billion in overall financing. However, why we're coming back to increase this is two things. One, the $3 billion is inclusive of all of the providers, and so it does not separate. Now, as we have multiple residential providers and multiple commercial providers, it was recommended that we identify those individual levels by provider. So rather than having $3 billion for all of our providers, we're now showing it as $3 billion for the HERO program, $150 million for California First, $100 million for PACE Funding Group, $200 million for Greenworks, $200 million for Clean Fund, and then $50 million for Y-Green. And so we would come back, review those limits, and come back on an annual basis if any of those limits need to change. So we have four requested actions today. One is to approve the updates to the HERO dealer fee program. We have two resolutions related to the debt management policy and the increase to the maximum bonded indebtedness levels, and then an approval to amend the program report to reflect those changes in the maximum bonded indebtedness levels. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Casey. Any questions by members or comments? Well, you're getting off easy. Okay, Janice, do you want to set up a vote, please? Waiting on Menifee.
My screen has gone into power save mode.
If you would verbally state your vote, that would be fine. Thank you, sir.
Okay, with it, we have a first by Lake Elsinore, second by San Jacinto, and
It passes.
we're not getting the total.
Because there's an
gotcha.
issue with Menifee's screen. He's working on it right now.
Okay.
Sorry?
Down here. And that is approved 16-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item, I see you're not moving, by Casey Daly on California Clean Air.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Clean Air Day.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I still am Casey Daly. And now for something completely different. So what we're here today to ask the board to consider doing is proclaiming October 2nd, 2019 as California Clean Air Day. The first California Clean Air Day was started last year by the Coalition for Clean Air to act as a call to action and to help people improve air quality by doing their own part. This year, the Coalition for Clean Air has broken up the state of California into 6 regions, the Inland Empire, or Inland Southern California being one of those, and WRCOG staff has been selected to serve as co-chair for California Clean Air Day for the Inland Empire. So a couple of the activities that are going on that are worth mentioning. UC Riverside and Riverside Public Utilities are hosting a Sustainability Day at the Bournes College of Engineering. Over in San Bernardino, Dignity Health is doing a health walk around their campus with various vendors to promote and support clean air activities. And then something that's actually pretty cool is a video is being developed for the K through 12 students at Riverside Unified School District. And so, you know, like they do the pledge and make like morning announcements. So there'll be a video at that time that'll be shown to the students kind of promoting clean air and clean air activities. And then the Coalition for Clean Air is also asking people or encouraging people to take the pledge. So this would just be an opportunity to take the pledge and commit to do some kind of activity, whether it's you know, not drive your car for a day, or plant a tree, or, you know, there's a whole host of activities that one can do. Switch to cleaning products, all that kind of fun stuff. So what they're trying to do is to get people to take the Clean Air Pledge so they can get a bunch of signatures and go and show how many people participated in Clean Air Day activities. So, since WRCOG is co-chair, there were 2 things that we thought we might be able to do to help support it within the subregion. The first is what I'm doing right now, which is seeking approval to proclaim October 2nd as California Clean Air Day. You might ask, why are we doing this in August? Well, the hope is that we can not only get WRCOG to pass resolutions, but get all of the cities, or as many of the cities as possible, to pass resolutions as well, proclaiming October 2nd as Clean Air Day. And what we thought would be kind of a fun incentive and a fun way to make a splash, both in the public and on social media, would be to host a tree planting ceremony. And so we've gone ahead and applied for a micro grant, which was made available by the Coalition for Clean Air. And so what we're suggesting is that any city that takes us up on the offer to pass a resolution naming October 2nd as Clean Air Day will help support a tree planting ceremony, whether that's at City Hall, community park, community center, wherever it makes the most sense. The micro grant that we've applied for will go to help provide for the tree planting materials, the trees itself, a commemorative plaque, and we're thinking, hey, this would be a great way. Council passes a resolution, you do a tree planting ceremony, you take some pictures, you post it on your socials, hashtag Clean Air Day, we're good to go. So that's the grand vision. We figured it was as low-hanging fruit as possible, but could also make a fairly big impact. So if anybody is interested in taking us up on the offer, please let me know so that we can kind of coordinate. And with that,
very sincere.
Asking, we have one requested action to adopt Resolution 30-19.
Thank you, Casey. Any questions or comments? We have in the queue District 2, right?
Yes. I have a question. You pointed out only one school district to participate in that video. Why is there only one school district?
That's a wonderful question, and I'm glad you asked it. I think we could have multiple school districts. The reason it's only one school district is that the person that's kind of heading up that particular piece of it happens to work for Riverside Unified. But I was obviously thinking that we have multiple school districts.
We
here.
also have somebody who could maybe help us.
We've got a line into the schools as well.
She's got influence.
Was thinking if I'm picking up what you're putting down, I was thinking the same thing, that we could potentially work with the superintendent of schools and see if we can't get that video disseminated countywide. That'd be fantastic.
Thank you. With that, I'll move the item.
We have one more. Calamesa would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Way over here on the lonely left, Casey.
Is that our new grandpa?
Yes, it is. Second time around. Thank you, Karen, for that. So, Jeremy Smith had the second. We won't talk about grandbabies all morning long here. So you're co-chair of this program. Who's the other chair?
The other chair is the woman from the Riverside Unified School District.
Excellent. And I didn't see any mention of South Coast Air Quality Management District. Are they a part of this process? Are we cooperating? We have a representative that sits over here and might be able to help us encourage that group to get participating in this program. And I'm going to assume that if I do your tree planting event, we're probably not going to plant something in my front yard, right? Is that a pretty good assumption?
There'd probably be some sort of conflict.
Yeah, I just checking on that one to double check that. So thanks. That's my silly comments. Thank you.
But we would absolutely work together with you and your staff on identifying an appropriate location and time to do it. And the first question, yes, AQMD is part of that working group that I mentioned. So we're working with them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I see no one else in the queue, so Janice, would you set up a system for vote? We have a mover and a second, and we have 17 yeses.
Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, we'll go on to item number 7, report from the TAC Committee Chair, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I have a few updates for the group today. The group did meet in July. We heard the very thorough presentations from Craig and Paul, so thank you for providing those then. Also, we are going dark in August. We will meet again in September. And finally, the last item was we did hear about a presentation regarding innovation to help stir economic development. So all very great, thorough, informational presentations. And that is the end of my update, Chair.
Thank you. Item 8, report from committee representatives. SCAG, anybody from SCAG that wants to report? AQMD, Ben.
Nothing to report as we were dark last month.
CalCog, excuse me, Brian. And SAPA, oh well, Rusty's not here. And Sandag. Nothing to report as well. Moving on to item 9, report from Executive Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. One, I want to thank Paul and Craig for coming and providing the presentation. Also thank the directors, Slauson and Denstedt for sitting on WRCOG. We appreciate the partnership that we have with both of the water districts. Also, probably you've noticed in the last several months we've been sending out a weekly update with regard to where WRCOG staff will be at a number of jurisdictional member agency events, and that seems to be something that you're interested in. We enjoy being there to promote the agency and a number of the programs, so we're just asking if there's anything that we miss or there are events that your jurisdiction wants us to be at, please let us know and we'll make plans accordingly to attend. Also wanted to congratulate Chris on being the chair of WRCOG's Technical Advisory Committee for the next year, so we look forward to working with you. And then lastly, we're starting to make the rounds, our annual request to come to your jurisdiction or agency, provide an update on what WRCOG has done during the course of the last year or so. I'll be in the city of San Jacinto tomorrow night providing a presentation. So talk to your city managers. If you have a slow spot on the agenda and looking to fill it with 10 minutes of time, let me know, and I'd be happy to be there. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Rick. Item number 10. Are there any items for future agendas that people would like to bring up? Seeing none, we'll go on to item, excuse me. Item 11, general announcements. Norco?
We're very excited. I don't know if you know this, but for 14 years we've done a Pearl Harbor ceremony in Norco at the NAVSEA base. We do that to try to remember veterans from all wars. And when we first started, we had many Pearl Harbor survivors that would come, and we'd have some days we'd have as many as 200, 300, 400, 100 people. One time we had 1,000 people. Well, this year, December 7th is on a Saturday. And we are really excited that Kelly McKeague, who is the director of the MIA-KIA Recovery Unit, that's the person that brings them home, is actually going to be our guest speaker. He's a member of the President's Sub-Cabinet, and we are really excited to have him. We're hoping for a gigantic turnout. We're going to take it back outside this year. We've got tents. If the weather permits, we have flyovers. I think Supervisor Spiegel's been there many times. I think every year you've been there, actually. And in fact, her office helps us to put the whole event on. We really hope people come out. This will probably be the first year we will not have a Pearl Harbor survivor. but we use that as the catalyst because the first patients to come to the old hospital were actually from Pearl Harbor. We use it to talk about Vietnam. We use it to talk about the most recent wars, World War II, Korea. I've seen this guy speak because my mother lost her cousin in Korea, and he is an amazing speaker. So we're very excited, and I invite all of you to come out. It's a Saturday, so you have nothing better to do unless you play tennis or golf. And I understand on that day all the golf and tennis courts are closed. So you can come to Norco to our NAVC base. That's all I have. Thank you.
Well, and I'll tell you, my father-in-law is a Pearl Harbor survivor, so I appreciate you.
Still alive?
No, no. But
trying
thank
to
you for
find
doing
one.
that, yeah. Any other announcements? Oh, Calamasa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kevin, that sounds like a terrific event. I'm going to try to put it on my calendar and be there because I appreciate the fact that your city continues to honor those who fought so diligently and for our freedom. But I just want to piggyback on what Rick said earlier about WRCOG staff circulating through our region and coming to our events. It's a simple request. I simply sent an email to Rick and asked him to maybe send out a couple staffers. We do a summer concert series for 8 weeks in Calamasa, and the little old city brings out 400 or 500 people, and we play old guy music, and the old folks love it to death. They come 2 hours early, you know how all that is. And Rick sent out a couple of millennials. Those millennials sat for 2 hours and listened to that music. I was so proud of them. But it really went off well. The folks in my community so appreciated having just a little bit of education on what do we do with our oil. You know, all of us are old enough, many of us in this room, that we used to pour it along the fence line and kill the weeds, but we got to knock that stuff off now. But it was great. And so, Rick, it's just a thank you for coming out, sending staff. They did a great job. They were pleasant. The folks really enjoyed it. So I just want to say it's an easy event. Send Rick an email, flooding with emails. He'll send a couple of staffers out to your city to your events. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12 is for closed session.
My light's supposed to be on.
Oh, it is now. Okay.
It's been popping in and out. Sorry, guys, it's not me. It really is.
You're testing me, right?
I'm testing you. I just have something very quick. I wanted to proudly share that Dr. Judy White was just recognized by the Richard T. Fields Bar Association on Saturday evening for all of her work that she's done. Their theme this next year is Breaking Boundaries Through Scholarship and Networking, and it was an honor to be there to see her receive this award, so I want to congratulate her publicly.
Congratulations. Now, anybody else? Nope. Okay. Item 12, closed session.
Yes, we have one closed session that's listed on the agenda. In addition, staff is requesting that the board add an additional closed session pursuant to section 54956.9 D2 related to potential exposure to litigation. So we'll need to have a approval of 2/3 of the board to authorize that, and then we'll discuss that in closed session.
Thank you. So
moved.
Can we have a vote?
Call for the question.
Are we setting up? We just do it verbally.
It's not in the system. I
Are there any
can't set it up.
opposed?
It's all verbal.
Let us raise our hands, huh?
There you go.
All those in favor, huh?
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Right. So if you, those on the dais will go down front, please, and go down in the back.